Lesson 4. Food processing. Look at the fast terminology words and write it in your book.
Processing.
Processing is when food is changed or prepared before we eat it, like cooking, cutting, freezing, or adding ingredients. Preserve. Preserve means to keep food fresh and safe to eat for a longer time. Care or curing. Curing is a way of preserving food by adding salt, sugar, or drying it so it does not go bad quickly. Artificial sweetness. Artificial sweetness means sweeteners that are made by people instead of coming from natural sources like sugar or honey. Preservatives. Preservatives are substances added to food to stop it from spoiling and to keep it fresh for longer. Why do we need food processing?
For point 1.
People have been processing food for thousands of years. Before the invention of fridges and freezers, people had to collect food in summer and store it because in winter food was often scarce. They found out that they could preserve food like meat and fish by salting and spicing and then drying it. This is called curing the meat. In South Africa, biltong and bakums are examples of cured meat and fish. Those of you that don't know what bakums is, that's biltong but fish biltong. Just for some curiosity, biltong was invented by the voortrekkers who traveled by ox wagon during the Great Tag. They needed to preserve meat for the long journey. The raw meat was preserved using salt, vinegar, and spices. Let's look at food processing then, and now. Hundreds of years ago, explorers like Columbus, da Gama, and Diaz had to pack supplies for their crews to last a very long time. Should they not find food and water on the expeditions, they too had to take as much preserved food and drinks as they could. Many of the foods we eat today cannot be eaten in their raw form. We need to process the food to make it edible. Sometimes food is also processed to add its nutritional value. For example, when fermented dairy products to make yogurt, cheese, and buttermilk. Napoleon Bonaparte, in the 1790s, launched a competition in France for scientists to develop ways to preserve foods for France's armies. This led to the discovering of canning. What benefits of food we get from food processing? So food processing adds many benefits to our modern lives. Transportation of fresh food is quite difficult. If producers can process the fresh fruit and vegetables in some way, the food is easier to transport. Delicate products such as grapes, strawberries, and peaches can be transported much more easily when they are preserved than if they were fresh. The process also helps the fruits and vegetables to last longer. Today, people can eat fresh fruit and vegetables all year round and do not depend on seasonal availability because of modern methods to process and transport these products. Therefore, food processing and transportation makes the modern, balanced, and varied diet possible. Many times, food and beverage producers add extra vitamins and nutrients to their food to make it healthier. Buying and preparing processed food is also more convenient and less time-consuming. Foods are processed to preserve them. For example, when fruits are preserved to make jam or pickled, like for example pickled onions or gherkins. Then food processing is largely very important to people with allergies and diabetes because they are able to eat a greater variety of healthy food. An allergy for cow or goat milk is a very common allergy among small children. They are able to drink milk only because modern food processing has found a way to make milk from rice, oats, and soya. Paste Activity 12 and listen to the explanation. The first product we have is raw meat. So, why should we process this? We cannot eat raw meat to stay fresher for longer. Those are the two reasons you would process the raw meat. Then you have yogurt. It needs to stay fresher for longer, and they add extra preservatives and stuff to taste better. Then we have pickled gherkins, also to stay fresher for longer but to taste better. Glazed cherries, to stay fresher for longer, to taste better. Fried eggs, to stay fresher for longer. We cannot usually eat raw eggs, so we cook them. Cheese would be to stay fresher for longer. Butternut for taste. Once we cut it, we put in a little bit of salt, sugar so that we process it all for taste. Frozen meals are made specifically for the reason to stay fresher for longer. Possible drawbacks of processed food. This means the negative side towards processed food. We have seen that processed foods have many advantages in our modern lives, but they also have drawbacks, which is disadvantages, especially if they have been overprocessed. Processed food is often seen as unhealthy because many processed foods contain too much sugar, salt, unhealthy fats, and added chemicals. Eating a lot of these foods can lead to problems such as weight gain, high blood pressure, and less energy. Some processed foods also lose important nutrients during manufacturing. However, not all processed foods are bad because some, like plain yogurt, canned beans, or frozen vegetables, can still be healthy. The main problem is eating too many highly processed foods instead of fresh, balanced meals. For point 2, how foods are processed. There are different levels of food processing. The key question is to ask, has any process occurred from when this plant or animal was in its natural habitat to where it is now? If you can say yes, then you know that it has been processed in some way or another. What levels of food processing do you get? There are 3 methods or 3 levels of food processing, and you have to know them very well. Minimally processed foods. This is fruits and vegetables, nuts, meat, and milk that undergo very little processing from when the plant or animal product was in its natural habitat to the point where it lands on your table. They need to be harvested, washed, and sometimes peeled, chopped, juiced, or cut to remove inedible parts before they are sold. These have a very short shelf life. Processed food ingredients. Products with a longer shelf life, such as flours, oils, fats, sugars, syrups, margarine, sweeteners, and starches, all fall into this category. This original product has been changed, and the ingredient does not look like the original kernel or grain, or oil seed, or beans. These processing techniques often break down any nutrient values, and the manufacturers often add in extra nutrients, vitamins, and minerals to their foods. The Xhosa people leave milk to curdle in a hide sack and calabash to form a semi-solid sour yogurt drink. Now we get highly processed food. Highly processed foods include snack foods and desserts, biscuits, cereal bars, chips, cakes, and pastries, as well as soft drinks and breads, pastas, breakfast cereals, and infant formula. Animal products that are highly processed include processed meats like smoked, canned, salted, or cured, nuggets, fish fingers, Vienna sausages, and boerewors and burgers. The Swazi people make Marula beer by placing the ripe fruit in large traditional pots and letting them ferment. Look at the picture. The picture shows how a raw product is processed to make raw ingredients, which looks very different to the original raw product. Then the processed raw ingredients are used to make highly processed food, such as bread. Malai meal is made by grinding maize, and it forms a huge part of the diet in many indigenous cultures in southern Africa, such as the Ndebele, Zulu, and Swazi. Look at Activity 14 in your book on page 62 and answer the questions and do the summarization. Just for the curious, Dr. J.H. Kellogg invented a type of granola cereal in 1860. It was meant for Seventh-day Adventists who were following a very strict diet. Later, his brother joined him, and they started their company, Kellogg's. So, do you think they were successful? So, if you think carefully, today you still get Kellogg's, so yes, I think they were successful. Food processing methods. Food processing methods have changed in many ways, but the basic principles are still applied. Food is still dried or heated to preserve it, just like people did 300 years ago, but there are many modern methods that are also used today, such as sun-drying, fermenting dairy into cheese, buttermilk, yogurt, barley, or grapes, pickling vegetables such as onions or gherkins, salting and spicing meat to preserve it, then drying it, adding sugar to berries or fruit to make preserves, pasteurization using just the right amount of heat to warm up milk or juice to extend the shelf life, cooking, roasting, smoking, baking or frying, toasting, freezing or refrigerating, freeze-drying, spray-drying, making juice concentrates. Did you know the Nimbi people eat a plant called amruru? It is cooked or dried by spreading it out in the sun so that it can be stored for the cold winter months. No matter what food process method is used, there are 5 extremely important performance parameters that all food processing must adhere to. Please write the following in your book. Important performance parameters that all food processing must adhere to. Hygiene, energy efficiency, minimal wastage, labor efficiency, minimal factory shutdowns. Once you've written that, please listen to an explanation of what each one means. Hygiene, keeping everything clean so the food is safe to eat. Energy efficiency, using as little energy as possible when making food. Minimal wastage, not wasting food, ingredients, or materials. Labor efficiency, workers do their jobs well and do not waste time or effort. Minimal factory shutdowns, machines and factories keep working without stopping too often. Look on the next page for the core content. Write it in your book. Now we'll do the revision, so we'll just talk a bit about that. So, write down a definition for food processing that will explain what it means. It's changing raw animal or plant materials into products and food that we can eat and use. There are 3 main reasons why we process food. Explain what is meant by the following words in relation to food processing. Preserving, so that means to making food last longer. Cooking or frying is to make food edible, and fermenting is increasing the nutritional value of food. 3. Many people believe that processing food is not good for their health. List 3 possible drawbacks of food processing. So there are too many additives added to the food, nutrients may be lost in the process, and there is a risk of contamination from various sources. Describe how you would preserve extra fish that you had caught while on an overnight camping trip. So you clean and gut the fish, wash it in salt water, and fillet the fish. Sprinkle pool salt and spices over it. Hang it to air dry in a well-ventilated space away from scavenger animals and pesky insects. A farmer wants to export table grapes to Australia from his farm near Worcester in the Western Cape. Suggest the best form of transport that you know of that he should use, and explain why you gave him this advice. So firstly, you should pack these grapes in special boxes that will protect them and place these directly into cold rooms. A special cooling truck should fetch these boxes and take them to the airport from where they can fly to Australia in freight planes. The lives of many diabetics and people with severe food allergies have been drastically improved with the inventions of many processed foods. Explain why you think this is so. Well, firstly, specialized food types were not as commonly available, and people with food allergies, such as milk allergies, can now buy these products and they don't have to remove it from their diet. Look at the table in your activity. Mealy bread will be a highly processed food because it went through a process, it went through a raw ingredient, and now it's a product on its own. Fresh mealy, washed and halfway peeled package. It's still in its natural form, but you did something to it already, so it's a minimal processing. Sunflower oil is not a product on its own, but it's an ingredient, but you did put it through a process, so it's processed ingredients. Explain why many people believe that highly processed food is bad for your health. Some food processes involved in making highly processed foods destroy many nutrients. Some methods of processing add a lot of sugar, fats, or oils. Compare the methods of any 2 food processing techniques. This you will do on your own. And number 10 you'll do on your own.